The art of interpretation. The classical art of interpretation, for the most part today, is dead. What does this mean? It doesn't mean anything. We are told schools, intellectuals, experts have killed interpretation. Classical reading, serious reading. What is meant by this? Nothing, they insist. It can mean anything. Why? In what sense? We receive a message in a bottle. We find it. Then we begin examining the bottle. We began arguing over where the bottle might have come from. We began wondering what it's made of. We open it up even. We examine the paper, the quality, the type of paper. We reconstruct the context of this message. We can start guessing about the age of the person who wrote it, the time in which he lived, he, she, it. We began writing books about this message in the bottle itself, about the finding. And yet, all along, we have written all of this. We have examined all of this. We have passed the letter at a microscope, examined the layers of cellulose in the paper. We have reconstructed the message scientifically. And yet with all of this, nobody has bothered reading the message seriously, trying to figure out what the author meant to tell us, what the message was, the message in the bottle. Why is it there? Well, we can only speculate as to the rationale, the psychosis, the phobia that led the author to communicate. Why? Why not acknowledge the possibility that the author had a message to convey to people who didn't know him? People who might have found the message many years after his death. People on another shore of the sea. He casts this bottle with a message inside into the sea, into the ocean. Perhaps 1,000 years from now, somebody will find the message. And if he can decipher more or less the language, English, let us say, for someone like Shakespeare, then I want to make it as easy as possible for him or her to understand, to see the light. All right, but this is ridiculous because we are told today that there is nothing to understand ultimately, for everything is about information. And let us consider now these two models, two ways of life, really, the modern and the ancient. All right, this is very simplistic, you could say, a rough sketch. Nevertheless, it is a poetic one that helps us see things as they are, helps us understand. Why is it there? To help us understand. Should we just grasp one element, build on quotes, on quotations, as some might say, and then build a theory about what this drawing means? No, please, no. We're used to it, though. Well, let us consider what we're used to first. The moderns. In our modern society, we're used to looking up to experts, the scientists, the professors, the academics, those who have expertise, the experts. And these people are competent. They speak in the language of a machine, the language that connects us to the experts. We, the unwashed masses, is the mechanical language of information. We grasp information, we use it for the sake of empowerment. Knowledge is power, we're told. So we take information, we grab a piece, we bite a piece off, and then what do we do with it? We build our own place within the system. In other words, we establish our authority. What is the goal, the end game? What is the point of all of this? Well, we have a race up. Whoever has the information and can use it to build his own authority, to build his identity, can rise to the level of experts. He will be part of the elite of experts who rule the world. Knowledge is power. And with all of this, he probably has no understanding of what is going on. Because the goal is not to understand. The goal is to become powerful. The quest is for empowerment. That's what schools teach us to pursue. So, for instance, we take a book, we look for information, the facts. We build a theory. How do we select the facts? Well, it's either by accident that we come upon certain facts, among many other facts, infinite facts. And how do we interpret the facts? To match, of course, our theory. And what's the point of our theory? Well, to win over other theories. Darwinian. Competition. We're evolving. On the bottom, we have the unwashed masses. They're the brutes in the state of nature. The unenlightened. They're competing on a very low level as brutes. Now, as we rise, we compete on a higher, sublimated level. We're enlightened. We're enlightened egoists. So what do? Instead of fighting with physical swords, we fight with words. We establish our power through our theories that will gain us the title of experts. We will be the ones who tell others what to do so that they too can aspire. Maybe one day they can become experts themselves. Rat race goes all the way up to expertise. And yet, the greatest experts can be pretty bad people. Most enlightened in the modern sense of the term, eminent intellectuals of Europe in the 1930s planned the Holocaust. Doctors, engineers, physicists, architects, all sorts of intellectuals, philosophers, certainly in the modern sense, so ideologues, they all planned this. Economists, of course, economists all over the world joined forces to build death camps. Good people? No, whoever said that you have to be good? Knowledge has nothing to do with, science has nothing to do with being good. You can be a perfectly evil person and be a perfectly successful scientist. This is what our modern world offers us. And it's based on the principle of chaos or violence. The idea is that underlying all of this mechanical contrivance, the speech that is mechanical, based on mechanisms supposedly belonging to nature, ultimately you have chaos and violence. And we're coming out of it into the realm of expertise. The mechanical world will save us from violent death. Right. What about the ancients? So what we have on this side is an alternative. So we don't have this mechanical language, but why? Because we have a sense that we are not utterly brutes by nature. That we are political by nature, as the old quip would have it. In other words, that we are, yes, fallen in biblical terms, but not completely, not devoid of, not cut off from providence, the light. There's a light presupposed by darkness. We're not altogether cut off from that light. Now, what's the point of the light? Is it something that we use to empower ourselves, to become experts? No. The point of the light is to return to its fullness. How? Poetically. So here we have a journey into the light. Is this light the light of the modern Enlightenment? Of course not. It's not the light. It's not the limelight. It's not the light of the Tower of Babel. It is the light presupposed by our fall. So what happens here? Well, we have not experts on top, but we have poets. And poets communicate to those who are still, for the most part, in the dark, lost in the dark, who have a very vague sense of light, mediated by the poets, in order to raise these people, and if they can't raise, at least to turn toward the light, piously, if they cannot rise. Well, what about the poet himself? Where does he come from? Has he evolved by the forces of evolution, of history, to become a poet? No. The idea is that we have young people who are touched by the light, mediated by authorities, by their educators. And these could be their fathers, of course. And as they are touched by the light, they grow stronger in mind. They live by the light, not by the darkness that surrounds them. And they pursue this light, the light of the understanding. They seek communion with the light. They seek to be strengthened by the light, to awaken in the light. And as they do, they rise onto a plane of being where they're no longer affected by compulsion. They're anchored in this original light presupposed by our fallenness. So much so that they're able to communicate with others who are still in the dark to help them ascend into the light. However, they're fully aware that most people who are in the dark will seek to grasp the light and bring it into the dark, following the Prince of Darkness. So that the poets will speak on two levels, on two planes. On the one hand, they will cater to the crowds of unskilled laughter, to paraphrase Shakespeare. On the other hand, they will help those who are touched by the light rise to the plane of the poetic life. So what we have here is a communication that is on two planes. And this communication opens up the possibility of interpretation, of reading as an ascent into the light. Whereas in the modern case, we have the two planes of the classics flattened out in terms of mechanisms. You still have a kind of hierarchy, but it's again flattened out so that you can go all the way up and still be evil. In fact, you might be the worst of the evil. Whereas in the classical sense, the classical context, those who are on top cannot be evil. Why not? Because they pursue the light, which is the good, which is what we want by nature, freely. What the light calls us to want, the light that is natural to the human being, and such independently of his fallenness, the light presupposed by the fallen condition that we're in. So, in order to understand, you have to shed darkness, and so evil. But in order to gain power, you don't need to do that. In the modern context, you can become an expert and be altogether evil. What is the end game for the moderns? A power that is altogether compatible with evil. What is the end game for the classics? For great authors? For the poets? It is the light of God.